Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into BlueCast. I am your host, Mouse, as always. This week we're going to be talking about bad trips, because not all trips are good trips. Some trips are bad trips. But what is a bad trip anyway? Are bad trips actually just good trips? Does that mean that good trips are bad trips? What are the best trips? Is there a worse trip? Is this going to last forever? Am I me? Who am I? No, not all bad trips are actually good trips. I love the positivity, but sometimes a bad trip is just a bad trip. Even if you can pull some good out of the trip, you can weigh the benefits of that good against having to suffer through an existential nightmare for however long, and sometimes things don't add up. Sure, some trips that are challenging can actually be beneficial, like exposure therapy in a way. I know personally I've had some trips that were challenging, but at the end of the day, it was just fine. I ended up with some fun stories to tell. I've never had full on psychosis. I've never run around naked. I've never thought that I was Napoleon. I've never had to stack furniture in my lawn to reverse a wizard spell. But I have had concerns over interdimensional space time ninjas, and more on that later. So, what makes a bad trip? Well, it usually just means that you're uncomfortable. This is the result of a poor set and setting, usually, but even with the perfect set and setting, sometimes things can get squirrely. This discomfort can be from hyperfixating on things like the body load or the feeling of being overly aware of the internal goings on of your body. Another common theme that really sends people down a road was that actually acid? This question is a bad question to ask. So, if your mouth goes numb or the tab is bitter, spit it out. You should be testing your LSD anyway before you eat it. It is one of the cheapest drugs. Hold on.
It's the cheapest drug there is.
There's really no excuse for you to not be testing this substance with the Ehrlich reagent. If it's purple, you're good. Don't ask yourself that question after that. Your mind is working on overclocked gaming computer Alienware mode when you're on psychedelics. It will project whatever you feed it. So if you feed it the idea that you might be on some dangerous mystery drug, your mind is capable of creating symptoms that otherwise would not exist. These are called psychosomatic symptoms. So when parts of your brain that don't normally communicate are suddenly able to, interesting things will happen. Take this into account and try to focus your attention elsewhere. It really does not do any good for you to fixate on the negative aspects of an experience that you're stuck in for 8 to 12 hours. Speaking of stuck, let's talk about thought loops. So let me just share a little story with you. My friend was on acid. I forget the specific dose. I think it might have been 1 or 2 tabs. And while he was tripping, he thought, wow, this is the perfect time to smoke DMT. So he smoked DMT, and thus began an hours long thought loop that he was in, where he was continually asking me, what is going on? And I would just explain to him, you're on drugs, you did a little DMT, that's what's going on. Everything's fine. But I would answer the question. He would sit with that maybe for a little bit and then would fully loop back around and be like, what is going on? So, this is a good reason to have a trip sitter. But if you're on your own, you'll just have to hope that you can identify the loop as it's happening and change your line of thought to something else. This is hard. The way that I describe LSD and to a lesser extent mushrooms is that this is a reverberation machine. Things have echoes, whether it is the visual echoes that create trails or allow for the formation of fractals using the brain's pattern recognition system, or the mental echoes of thoughts that seem to loop around in the brain before either withering away or being pushed aside. There's really 2 ways to prepare yourself for exiting a thought loop. You can engage in an active practice of mindfulness. This can help you check your own brain when things are getting weird. Mindfulness is essentially the practice of checking in on yourself continually so that you're mindful of your state of being. You get why you're doing or thinking whatever it is you're doing or thinking. The other way that you could prepare yourself for this is just with practice. I mean, if you've done mushrooms or acid or whatever a bunch of times, you might be able to instantly identify that the thought you're having is going in some kind of weird, loopy direction. So then what? The first thing I would recommend to people who are having a rough trip is to drink some water. This accomplishes a few things. You'll instantly be part of
Hydration Gang. We fuck with water heavy. Hydration across the nation. Hydrate or dihydrate.
So that's something, but you can also be changing your scenery. Literally changing the room that you're in can make a huge difference in a trip. If you're in your cool, chill trip cave and you start flipping out, moving into your kitchen to pour yourself a glass of water can be like a breath of fresh air. The cool thing about psychedelics is that the trip cave with the black light posters and the Philips Hue lighting and the fucking refractory light that you put in the corner from that you got off Amazon. I mean, all this looks really cool, but it's essentially about as interesting as any popcorn ceiling or wood grain floor that you're ever going to come across. You're not going to blow your high by stepping outside on your porch and looking at a tree either. You're on a journey and you're going to be totally fine. But this is the part of the video where I tell you about a time that it wasn't totally fine. Now, before I get into this, I just want to explain to you, I have a lot of experience with LSD. So please don't go take the dose that I took thinking that you're going to be able to do it. Like, you need to be practiced, and really, I can't really recommend doing this dose to anyone. There's really no reason to go this high. So I did 1,000 UG of LSD. That's 10 hits of acid. So previous to this trip, I had had 3 bad trips in a row, or I should say unpleasant trips. And prior to that, I had been going hard with no bad shit ever. I'd been doing acid maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks for a period of like 2.5 years at this point, which I don't really recommend doing that. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. So previous to this trip, I had these 3 bad trips, and I loved acid, and I really wanted to be able to trip again with no bad experiences. So I gave myself some time off from the substance. I waited like 2.5 months before I tripped again. So as soon as I felt the acid come up, I felt this sense of dread that remained unchanged for the duration of my 14-hour trip. So the sensation that I had was this feeling of dread. Like you had just been like, okay, so let's imagine you're at the store, you're a little kid, and you steal some candy, but the guy spots you doing it and he goes, "Hey!" That moment where you're caught and you go, "Hey!" and you're like, "Ugh." I had that sensation for about 14 hours. So it fucking sucked. And the best way that I was able to describe the feeling that I had was this. It was as though an intergalactic space ninja had fucking samurai sworded through the veil from his realm into ours, came into our reality and grabbed like a handful of like atoms or dark matter or something, and then like snuck back out through his, samurai sword hole in the veil. And I realize that sounds fucking crazy, okay? But it felt as though there was something wrong in the universe that no one else is going to know about. I mean, he's a fucking space ninja, okay? So no one else is going to know that this is wrong. I'm the only person that's aware of this, and it is the end of the world. So I paced around my house, trying to get rid of this feeling. I went to my backyard. Unfortunately, at the time, I was not living in a very safe area, so I stepped outside, and after about 10 minutes, I heard gunfire. There's like crackheads like walking down the alley, talking to themselves. So this wasn't going to help me, so I went back inside. I paced around. I took a shower, which helped with the vasoconstriction, but only temporarily, and I needed to get out. Then the damp saga began. When I say that I've never really had full blown psychosis, this is the closest that I feel that I've gotten. I felt as though I will never not be damp. My hair was wet from the shower, my towel was slightly damp, and I couldn't fully dry my hair. So, the only way to fix this, to truly be sure that my head will remain dry, I needed to shave my head totally bald. And instantly, I had a vision of Frank at Patty's Pub and knew in my heart that this was a completely fucked thing to do. So I had a bit of a laugh about that, but the dread remained. So I did the thing that you're never meant to do. I did the one thing that you're not supposed to do. I did the one rule that you're always supposed to follow. Don't call your mom when you're tripping on acid. Well, I did it. Thankfully, my mom knows about my relationship with drugs for the most part, though I've spared her about 95% of the details. So when she received a call from her 32-year-old son at 2:30 in the morning saying, I'm on acid and I just want to talk to a friendly voice, thankfully, she pretty much got it. Unfortunately, I was now just miserable, but with company. It was calming to hear a friendly voice, someone I knew had like unconditional love for me, but it really did not solve my issue. The shit was still all fucked up. She tried though. She asked me like what my visuals were like. I told her that the wood grain floor looked like it was breathing, that it was pretty, and that I wish that I was able to enjoy it. And in response to this, she said, well, that sounds fucking terrifying, which was a totally irrational response for somebody who's never done that kind of stuff, though maybe not the best timing. Either way, I thought it was funny. And then we discussed my dampness issue briefly before I realized that this was not going to help my situation and that I should probably just let my sweet mother go back to goddamn sleep. So there I am, damp. There's like shit missing from my universe that we're never, literally never going to get back. I'm just damp and fucked. And I don't even know what's going to happen. I just know that it is the worst. The problem with helping lots of people over the years with their own bad trips is that most, if not all of those techniques and tactics don't really work on me anymore. I become aware that I'm doing this thing in order to get out of a bad trip, which further nails down the fact that yes, I am indeed in a bad trip. That's that reverberating effect that I was talking about. It kind of snowballs. So someone can tell me, take some deep breaths. And the only thing that I can think about is that this is the exact same thing that I would tell to somebody who was having a bad trip or acting fucking crazy. So it's this fucked up like ring road of harm reduction. But I'm happy that I've been able to help people over the years and pull them out of bad situations. So shouts out to our trip sitting staff and our community on our Discord server, linked down below. They do an amazing job, and I will give a shout out to Heyoka, who is the king of trip sitters. So if you're in there and you request a trip sitter and you get Heyoka, you're in good hands. So despite my knowledge that the trip sitter intervention probably is not going to help me, I did reach out to my friend in Australia who I knew would be awake at the time and kind of explained my situation. He did a total homie move. We got on a Discord call together. We started watching this global cooking show with this guy, and it was everything. The world may be fucked. I might be damp forever. There's fucking atoms missing that I can't account for, that no one can account for. But this bald guy was running around on boats trying to eat different preparations of like fermented goat meat or some shit when whatever village across the world for me, whatever it was a solid distraction. And then I said, man, I'm thinking about just doing some nitrous because I know for sure that will help with my anxiety. And this was a dilemma that I had been pondering about for, I don't know, probably like 3 or 4 hours at this point. I even brought it up with my mom on the phone, and she advised that adding another drug to the mix was probably not the move, but I haven't been listening to her for years. So my Aussie buddy, in his beautiful Australian wisdom, suggested that I should definitely do the NOS if I thought it would help, which is a really fucking good idea, actually. So I would do a balloon and find a little window of temporary relief from this sinking feeling of dread. I would giggle at the bald man trying soup that did not look like it was very good soup. The nitrous was essentially a gift from heaven. I had managed to have enough on hand, please don't judge me, to get me through the tail end of this trip. So when I did run out, there was this little surge of anxiety, but at this point, it had been 14 hours of this fucking mental anguish, and I was really just too tired to care anymore. I went to bed and listened to Alan Watts talk about stuff until I fell asleep. So I haven't done LSD since that trip. It was a bad trip. I didn't learn anything. Even if the lesson was stop doing acid, it was not worth 14 hours of that to get that message. So maybe the message was you should call your mother more often. Either way. In the future, I would prefer to learn these lessons in a way that doesn't involve, intergalactic space-time ninjas. And to the ninja, like, if you're watching this, please just bring whatever it is that you took back into our universe. I really liked acid, and I would like to do it again. That's it for this episode about bad trips. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell, click that share button, blast this video out into hyperspace. I really appreciate all the support that I've been given. This next episode of BlueCast is something that I've been working on for a few months now. It is an audio-visual DJ mix with some trippy visuals to enjoy on Bicycle Day. That is April 19th. That is the day that Albert Hoffman first intentionally dosed himself with LSD. So pretty fucking cool day. So you can either hit that notification bell down there, or you can join the event in our Discord server, which is linked down below. We do cool shit there. I've also got a very cool announcement coming up and a giveaway planned for episode 10, so please stay tuned for that. That's all I've got for this episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed this story and these tips. And so until next time, spread love.